All right, Shalom. This is your brother Nahal from the GMS Orlando camp. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasher Allah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. All right, Yahweh is the name of the one they ignorantly call God. Yahweh Shai is the name of the one they ignorantly call Jesus. Bahashem is in the name. Rakah is spirit. Kodash is holy. Akyam is brothers. Akwath is sisters. Shalom means peace. And Yasher Allah is Israel in the ancient Paleo Hebrew. All right, now I want to go into a lesson through the spirit on this video from the author G. Edward Griffin. All right, he's the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island. All right, it's a very popular book that came out in the 90s concerning the Federal Reserve. A lot of things that, our elders and apostles brought out concerning the banking system. This guy's an author of one of those popular books in the 90s that were bringing out these things that were considered conspiracy theories when he wrote it. But now he's witnessing these things play out in real time. All right, and I want to get some points that he's made in this video. All right, so Lord willing, this is edifying. I want to just go straight into it.
But first, of course, I want to talk about the latest, from the Federal Reserve with you, the banking crisis, the dollar, so much more. But let's start with the banking crisis, because when I interviewed you a few years ago for the first time, it was way before Credit Suisse and all the banks went down. You were already warning about the danger signs you were seeing in the banking system. You explained there were like mushrooms popping up, but at one point or another, the system would fail. So I want to get your thoughts a few years later here post all the dominoes we've seen falling, of your take on banks and the state of the system today, the health of the system.
It's hard to know how to answer that question because it's like cutting a tree log. You can cut it straight across or at an angle, and depending on the angle, the grain looks different, but it's the same tree, it's the same log. And you can look at the banking crisis, as you say, and say that is a crisis in banking. But that's not how I cut the log. I see the crisis is our crisis, the economy crisis, and the banks are going to do very well indeed. The banks are not in crisis, even though they like to have us say the banking crisis and what are we going to do to protect the banks and how do we keep them from failing and all that sort of thing. I think it's kind of a naive view to think that the banks are in trouble, because once you understand how deep and wide their control is over almost every important aspect of our society and our culture, even certainly our economy, our political system, all of that. These as our friends call them, the banksters, are right in the middle of all of that, and you get to be old like I am, and you get a little bit skeptical about these phrases like banking crisis and the health crisis and so forth, and you realize that there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. So let me clarify.
All right, so I want to deal with that first and foremost through the spirit, because again, the Hegelian dialectic is pressure from above and pressure from below. What this guy goes into is how this system is intentionally, it's a controlled demolition. All right, the bankers are involved with it, and they put this narrative out as if it's a banking crisis, but the people who are involved with the banks are behind it. When you deal with the elites, there's a very complex system, and it's meant for controlled demolition. All right, let's go here. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 1. It says, "But of the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief." So when we hear information like this through the spirit, we don't get bugged out, because we understand this is the intent of the Heavenly Father first and foremost. All right, because Esau is really just a tool in the hands of the Lord. Because a lot of people are going to be destroyed in this controlled demolition. All right. To the Lord belong the issues of death. All right. And a part of Esau's plan is to destroy many people on the earth. This controlled demolition is going to be a part of that. All right. It's going to get to a point where they're going to beg people to take the sea hill. All right. But it's going to involve pressure first and foremost. All right. And he goes into it, and I want to continue through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shah, how this system is intentionally crashing. All right. It's an intentional demolition to bring about something new. All right. And we'll get that in Revelation, the 13th chapter, Lord willing.
Why I started off with that little bit of a warning that I'm going to be skeptical about this. The banks obviously are allowing this, what we call crisis, to happen. In fact, they created it. This didn't happen because of some atmospheric condition, or because the weather was bad, or because there was a virus, or because there was anything. It was because the banks who own the Federal Reserve System, the Federal Reserve System is a cartel of banks. Let's get clear on that. So when we speak of the Federal Reserve, we speak of banks, the big, powerful banks. And these people are experts. They know what sound monetary policy is, and they know what unsound monetary policy is, and they know that the unsound is more profitable to them than the sound. Sound is good banking, good reserves, keeping your promises, considering that when the depositors put their money in your bank, that it's their money and not yours. All of these good practices, the bankers know about them, but they don't practice them. For a long time, they've always pretended to be conservative and very concerned about the economy, the welfare of the nation. But it's always been like any other cartel, whether it's a banana cartel or an oil cartel. A banking cartel is no different. It's formed for the benefit of the members of the cartel, period.
All right. And those members of the cartel, all right, are Edomites. All right. The elite of the Edomite house. All right. They're behind all of these banking families, if you will. They're all Edomites. All right. And what it is basically a liquidation. You know, when you think about chattel slavery and the Emancipation Proclamation, that was a transfer of the personal slaves to the federal system. All right. This is another transition of wealth. All right. And he basically explains this. And one of the things that he pointed out was that they know sound policy. They know how to run a system correctly, but they benefit from the system being this way. All right, let's go here. This is Ezekiel chapter 28, and I'll start at 1. The word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus, Thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Shema Shai, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God. I sit in the seat of God in the midst of the seas. Yet thou art a man and not God, though thou set thine heart as the heart of God. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that they can hide from thee. With thy wisdom and with thine understanding, thou hast gotten thee riches, and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures. By thy great wisdom and by thy traffic hast thou increased thy riches, and thine heart is lifted up because of thy riches. All right. And see, this is the system that we live in. They know how to do the things, do these systems and run these systems right, but they just refuse to do it. All right. And it's because they're not upright. Matter of fact, let's go there first. It's Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time. And when you look at this system, the Lord spoke about this system thousands of years before its inception. You know, we're just living through the details, but the Lord told us that a kingdom would rise up unlike the other kingdoms before it. All right. And that it will be thrown down, and that the Lord will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. So we're living through that last kingdom of the heathens. All right. The fourth beast, if you will. All right. The toes, the feet and toes of the statue in Daniel, the 2nd chapter. All right. So it says again, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And one of the biggest ways he's done that is through the economic system, tying everybody together, tethering everybody together through the system, so that when anything falls, everybody's affected. All right. Now, that's not to mention the over 800 military bases they got across the planet. All right. But they have a grip on the planet. All right. Now, when you deal with the West in particular, all right, these banks, all right, and really the banking system is global, but just dealing with the West in particular, people who live here, brothers, the sisters that do listen that live here, you notice that things become more and more expensive. All right. What he's bringing out is that this is intentional, that the inflation of this system is intentional, because again, in order for them to bring in something new, this has to fall. All right. And while they call it a banking crisis on paper, really is going to affect the people more so than the banks. One of the things he mentioned in this is that the Federal Reserve is a cartel of banks. Now, we know the elites control things directly and indirectly. Sometimes their name is on stuff, sometimes it's not. But they control things through shell companies, through mutual funds, through, hedge funds, having a controlling stake in things. They hide in the shadows. So it's hard to track their money down to them, their person. But they're behind this. And this guy's bringing it out very beautifully through the spirit, that everything that's happening is intentional. We didn't slip and fall into this financial system. It was known. All right. Now, when you deal with this guy, G. Edward Griffin, the book I mentioned, The Creature from Jekyll Island, one of the points that he made in this book, I'll just bring it out. Now, this is from hustleescape.com, and this book summary for Creature from Jekyll Island. All right, I just want to get one of the key points he made. All right, it says the book summary, the key ideas. It says, I'm going to jump down to verse 2. It says, natural laws of money and the mandrake mechanism. Fractional and fiat money systems always degenerate into economic chaos. They depend on the mandrake mechanism, which describes a process by which government debt gets converted into money from nothing. All right, and we know that fiat currency systems have 100% failure rate. They eventually fail. Now, what he brought out was that this didn't happen by accident. When you think about them taking the money off of the gold standard, that wasn't an accident. You're really dealing with very subtle individuals on the top of this system. All right, they know exactly what they're doing. They just choose to do the wrong thing, and not the right thing. All right, because again, their God is their belly. All right, as the scripture said in Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, the spirit that is in them is not upright. All right, now when you go to number 3, it says the Federal Reserve has given the most powerful in society a formidable tool in their manipulation of geopolitics. Throughout the last 400 years, powerful families have played both sides of war for their own financial gain. All right, so when you hear about banking crises, when you hear about all of these things, you have certain people that have a level of awareness. They can speak on what's currently happening, but they don't know the end goal, because really the end goal is told in the scriptures. All right, the elites on the left hand know, and the elites on the right hand know. Lord willing, we be a part of that number. All right, but we understand that there are families behind this. So when you see these banking crises, all right, this isn't an accident. They know years in advance the effects of their decisions, but they're doing this intentionally. All right, so let's continue.
And they have to go through a lot of effort to convince the politicians and the public that they really care about America. They really care about the economy. And I'm here to say that the only reason or the extent to which they care about the economy is the extent to which it benefits them. And it has nothing to do with the consumers or the depositors. Now, having said all that, let's take a look at it from my skeptical glasses. And what I see.
Now, one of the points he also brought out was that they pretend to care. They pretend to care about the system. They pretend to care about the crises, but really they're behind it all. on both sides. All right. So when we go to Revelation, the 13th chapter and the 11th verse, it says, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." Because whether it's the right, the Republicans, or the left, when you deal with the Democrats, it's the same beast. All right. You have to remember these politicians that so-called represent the people on the right or left, they all go to the same places. They're all in the same spaces. They're their own social class. So really it's two horns on the same beast. All right. But they put this veneer on as if they care about the people, as if they care about the crises. But really it's a game. All right. And there is people behind this game, contrary to popular belief. The average person believes that a lot of these things are happening by chance, that we kind of just fell into this position. All right. But, guys like this have been talking about this since the 90s. I believe this guy right here is like 90, 93. Let me see. Let's get it. Yeah. So it says he's 92 years old, and he wrote a book about this in 1994. So he's been following this very closely. But again, guys like this can only tell you what's happening according to their limited knowledge. All right, because ultimately the true understanding is in the scriptures. We understand through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai where this system is heading. All right, and the intention of Esau beginning with their elites. And we see now that even the common Edomite is being thrown into the food chain, if you will, as they transfer wealth from the average, the middle class, to the elites. All right, let's continue.
Is that the banks have decided that this system that they've created a long time ago, which has always benefited them, even the casual observer has to notice that the banks are still in business while a lot of other industries and businesses have gone out of business in the so-called economic bubbles and crashes and all these crises they talk about. The banks always survive, and they came out the other side of it very well indeed, and having more money, more assets, more power than ever before. And so it's obvious that these crises are not damaging to the banks. So what is it all about? Why did the banks allow these crises to happen? Is because it's profitable to them. It's a means of acquiring the assets of the nation gradually and slowly through a process of inflation. That's the simple version. There are other little side eddy currents that are also at play, but the major one is inflation of the economy, the loss of purchasing power of the dollar. Every time the dollar loses every time the dollar loses one unit of purchasing power, whatever that unit is, somebody gains it. Nobody asks, well, it went to somebody. Who did it go to? And if you want to follow the loss of the purchasing power that the consumer suffered through, the gain came to the cartel members, which is a partnership between government and banks. So the gain came to the
Beautiful, right? So in a system like this, the government is supposed to regulate the banking system, the businesses, so that they don't abuse the citizens. But they're colluding. They're both in the same. They both are colluding together, all right, against the citizens. And this is why you're gonna have sedition, because eventually, the average Edomite is gonna realize that the wool has been covered over their eyes. All right, that they've been finessed, even by guys like Trump, who promote, draining the swamp. Eventually, the average Edomite in this society is going to realize that they've also been deceived. All right, and it's going to result in sedition. All right, let's go here real quick. This is Second Esdras. We're going to go to chapter 15. And we'll go down to verse 15. All right, and it reads, I start at 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. All right. And because it's because they're going to realize that there is no hope. All right, that is the truth of the matter. There is no hope for Babylon being healed. There is no hope. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. All right, the average Edomite on this side of society believes that Trump is going to get in and fix all these problems. But he moves around the same circles as these Democrats. They're rich Edomites that live in a certain section of society, and they collude together. And this is a transfer of wealth. This is a great transfer of wealth. All right, one of the points that he also brought out was that, whenever you have inflation, somebody's winning. All right, everybody isn't losing. All right, if all of your wealth is in dollars, you're going to lose. But for people who own houses, who own property, who own these banks, their wealth increases because you don't destroy wealth. It's just translated. Power, or I should say wealth, riches, if you will, is never destroyed. It's just translated from one nation of people to the other, but it's never really destroyed. So when you see the dollar losing power, that means something else is gaining. Somebody else is gaining from that. All right, let's go here. It's Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. All right, because nothing is really destroyed when you deal with power, because kingdom is really the control of resources. All right, when you really look at a kingdom, it's the control of resources, the absolute control of resources. That is the power. That is the wealth. All right, as the scriptures say, you shall eat the riches of the Gentiles. That's the resources. So their resources are never destroyed. They're merely translated. And right now we're witnessing Esau translate their own wealth from the average Edomites to the elite. That's what we're witnessing. But because this system is tied in together with everybody being involved, everybody's going to suffer in this. All right, and it's in order to bring about a new system. And that system is not for the benefit of the people, it's for more control over the people. All right, which is going to lead us to Revelation, the 13th chapter. All right, so let's continue.
The government and to the Federal Reserve System, which is the cartel of the banks. So the cartel members, which is a partnership between government and banks. So the gain came to the government and to the Federal Reserve System, which is the cartel of the banks. So that's it. So now, why would they be doing crashing the banking system? And we can see that's actually happening. And
Yes.
and that's what started this whole thing with your question. It's a banking crisis. Well, no, it's not, because the banks, in my opinion at least, have decided that this game that they've been playing all this time has gone about as far as it can. They have inflated the money supply hundreds of times greater than any time before in history. And even with 1/10 or 1/100th of the inflation that we see now, even in the historical record of 1/100th of that, systems have always collapsed. So what are you going to say about it when it's 100 times greater than anything we've seen before? They know it's going to collapse. Actually, when you look at the banking system and the balance sheets on their financial summaries, it's already collapsed, but nobody knows it. They're just continuing to pretend like it's still working, and they're pumping money into the economy so fast. It's ridiculous. Nobody in their right mind, certainly in the banking industry, nobody dreams or even claims that these debts are going to be repaid. They cannot be repaid. The system is broken, and as I said before, eventually it's going to collapse. So now we come to the question, when is it going to collapse? Well, it's collapsing right now, if it hasn't already, and the banks are leading it. They want it to collapse. Now, isn't that an interesting, funny thing for me to say? Why would the
Yes.
banks want their banking system to collapse? And the answer is very simple, because they have something better in mind, at least better for them.
And we know what that better is, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai. All right, all roads lead to the sea hip. And guys like this, they can tell you, according to their knowledge, they can tell you things, and we filter it through the scriptures, and we understand that all of this is according to prophecy. This doesn't come as a surprise to us through the spirit, because as the scripture said, we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. But it's very edifying through the spirit, because what we see is that this is just a controlled demolition. All right, when you look at fiat currency in general, it always crashes. There's no point in history where fiat currency stood the test of time. They know that. You know, scriptures talk about them being wiser than the children of light. All right, let's get that. All right, we haven't been in power for a long time. So when it comes to the issues of rulership and dominion, you know, our people are so far removed from it, they have no concept of what's happening around them. That's why it's going to catch them as a thief in the night. But he brought out very beautiful points because he said, look, they know. You know, really on their balance sheet, in their books, it's already crashed. It's just a matter of it actually playing out in real time. And it's for the intent that a new system will be brought into light. All right, this is Luke chapter 16 and 8. And it reads, and the Lord commended the unjust steward because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. All right, so they know how to do sound fiscal policy. They know how to have a sound economy, but they benefit from it being unsound. They benefit from it not being right. And this is why they're doing it. As the scriptures say, his desire is as hell and is as death, and he cannot be satisfied. They have full control of the earth, but even that is not enough. So now they're taking it up another notch, and you're seeing the elites transfer wealth even more from their own people. All right, and they're using these crises to transfer the wealth. They're using inflation. All right, because if you hold assets, it doesn't matter how much the currency gets inflated, because when all the smoke clears, if you have the assets, you still have control. All right, and this is Esau's complicated way of stealing from people. All right, when you really look at it, that's exactly what he's doing. All right, let's continue before I grab these scriptures.
And that won't involve the old traditional use of money at all. Money will disappear as we have known it. They have this thing called the central bank digital currencies, which is something they will control. It won't be your money or mine, it's their money. We'll be allowed to use it if we obey their dictates, and they'll have complete control over us. This is why they are crashing the banking system now, because they want the dollar to collapse so that people will be desperate, and they'll be looking to the same people that caused the problem to create a solution to the problem. And people will be so desperate they'll accept anything, including this horrible thing called central bank digital currencies.
Now we know that the vehicle for the digital currencies is going to be the CHIP, which brings us to this. All right, let's go to Revelation chapter 13, and I'm gonna jump down to verse. Let's jump down to verse 14. It says, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. Now that beast that had the wound by a sword and did live is the Roman Empire. All right, this is why this is described as the revived Roman Empire. All right, and this is basically in so many words, this is Esau's way of creating a new system based on the Roman foundation. All right, so it's basically a digitized Roman Empire. That's their wet dream. All right, more control, all right, more oversight, and then they can set themselves up as God using technology, using the digital currency to control, because the digital currency is programmable money. All right, if they decide you can't buy milk, they could just put it in the algorithm. Whenever you try to scan out milk, it doesn't work. This is the kind of control they can have through digital currencies. And this is the push. All right, let's continue. Verse 16 reads, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. All right, so you won't be able to buy or sell. All right, and when you go to verse 15, it says, as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Now, I've covered this before through the Spirit, but when you go to, and other brothers have covered this as well. All right, when you go to this word, apokteno, it says to kill in any way, whatever. When you go to the root, it's apo, all right, and it says of separation. All right, and what he's describing is a digital system where if you have no access to it, you are separated by default. They don't got to come knock on your door and see if you took it. They're just going to cut off your ability to access resources unless you have it. And he stated, very beautifully through the Spirit, that it's going to get to a point where people are going to beg for it. All right. That's how tough it's going to get. There's going to be a squeeze, and that is going to usher in what is known as the hour of temptation. All right. This is Revelation chapter 3 and verse 10. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. All right. We're watching things gradually get to that point. All right. Where eventually pressure from above and pressure from below is going to force everyone into a new type of system. All right. Under everybody's noses, they've already created a lot of the infrastructure. When you deal with 5G, when you deal with FedNow, which is basically instant settlement globally. All right, they're going to feed people with the idea of convenience, but then they're going to stress the system so much that people are going to beg for it. All right, so let's get a little bit more.
Now that it took a long time to answer your question, but it's because they have an idea of something better for them and worse for us.
And is this, and I want to focus on the central bank digital currencies, because you make such a clear and important point, Mr. Griffin. Is this the great reset for you that we
Well, it's
talk of?
it's the banking side of the Great Reset, which is the major side of it. So I would say yes, it's the major view of the Great Reset. What is the Great Reset? Well, that's not just monetary; it's social and cultural as well, and it includes even the dehumanization of us. It includes a lot of things other than money, but money is at the core of it because it takes.
And see, it's no coincidence that the first Neuralink patient is going on basically an interview tour. He's basically on a tour where he's being asked questions about how the chip works in his brain and the things that he can do. And these are these alleged miracles that they put out there. So when this is put out, people are in a sense desensitized to it because they've witnessed a guy who is paraplegic and now he has access to the computer. People are going to look at it like this is a form of convenience. Because remember, the CHIP, the mark is not just going to be money, it's going to be your ID. They're going to sell it, they're going to package it so that it looks completely convenient and natural. As odd as that sounds, this is why they are making things, they're putting things in movies and TV. And now with the Neuralink patient, they are desensitizing the population to the idea of having electronics implanted inside of you. And things that seem far-fetched at one point are now becoming normal conversation. All right, let's run that back.
Is the major side of it. So I would say yes, it's the major view of the Great Reset. What is the Great Reset? Well, that's not just monetary; it's social and cultural as well, and it includes even the dehumanization of us. It includes a lot of things other than money, but money is at the core of it because it takes a lot of money to do these things, and these people don't have that money. They create it out of nothing. That's the game. That's always been the game. So yes, it's definitely that.
And I want to get back to the dehumanization, but let's just sit on central bank digital currencies. I thought of you because I had someone on recently who said it's interesting that they almost stopped talking about central bank digital currencies. You remember it was a summer when FedNow was coming out, and yes, we know that's the plumbing. It's not really a central bank digital currency, but there was a lot of talk, even in mainstream media, which never really, brings up central bank digital currencies, but talk of a digital dollar. And in fact, New Year's Day, we saw Christine Lagarde saying, talking of a central bank digital currency and how it will come to Europe soon. And yay, let's bring in a wonderful digital euro and it's going to make life wonderful for everyone. But since then, right, would you say it's been a few weeks where they stopped, or a few months where they've stopped talking about it? Maybe there's a reason why. Maybe they don't want folks revolting. I mean, I'm just, these are all
Yes,
hypotheses, but
it's a
just,
good
I
question.
do find it interesting. Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it till just now, but now that I sort of rewind the tapes and play them for the past month or 2 or 3, it does seem that there's less attention to the central bank digital currency, and that, of course, is your question. Why would they play that game and not talk about it anymore? I think I'm going to guess at this, but I think if that's true, and the news has been tapered down on this issue, I think it would be because in the beginning, they were just talking about how wonderful it would be, how convenient it would be, and how it would solve so many problems for us, and how it would even ensure our privacy and put those banks in their place, But now that the word is out, and people like you and me and other commentators.
So what he's going into is how, the beginning of the cryptocurrency wave, it was sold to people as if this is going to be how you fight against the banks. You get your Bitcoin and you get a private wallet, and then you can kind of go under the radar. You can go off the grid using digital currency. And all of this was really intentional to get people accustomed to using digital currencies, to bring a lot of scams that happen in the cryptocurrency space so that people will ask for it to be regulated. And then all the ships come home to roost. All right. It's Esau is very crafty. The scriptures call him subtle. All right. And when you deal with the elites of the society, they are very wise concerning wickedness, and they know how to deceive. All right. Let's go here. This is Psalms chapter 10. And I'll start at 2. I'll start at 1. Why standest thou far off, O Lord? Why hidest thou thyself in times of trouble? The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined. Because their idea is to put everybody in captivity through technology. And the uno reverse, if you will, is that the elites are going to be the first ones to go into captivity in the kingdom of heaven. It's a uno reverse, and the Lord is telling them before it actually happens. All right. When you really look at Esau's plan, it's all been outlined in the scriptures, and they can't resist. They still are bound to prophecy. Everything that they're trying to do, everything that they're doing was already it's scripted. It's already in the scriptures that they will do these things, and they're living it out and they're playing it out. All right. Verse 3 reads, "For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blesseth the covetous, whom the Lord abhorreth. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after the Most High. The Most High is not in all his thoughts. His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. He has said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity." All right. And one of the things he said again in that article was that, they pretend to care. They act like they're concerned about the citizens of this great nation, as they call it. But deep down in their heart is deception and vanity and greed. All right. As if the scriptures say they have more than heart could wish, but even that is not enough for them. So much so that they're going to sell their own people out, or attempt to. And this is what's going to bring about sedition. All right. I want to grab this in the Good News translation. This is 2 Esdras chapter 15 and 15. The war that will bring their destruction is very near. Nations will arm themselves and fight against other nations. There will be great political turmoil, with one group trying to overpower another and gain control while ignoring the legitimate government. All right. It says there will no longer be free access to the cities, because what happens is they're going to realize that their so-called legitimate government sold them down the river. All right. And they're no longer going to regard their kings or princes. And eventually that's going to bring about what? Martial law. All right. So I want to go into this through the spirit. I may do a part 2 on this one, but I just want to cover those points that he made in the beginning of this. Lord willing, this was edifying. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwat, who will believe in this word. in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.